Hey, our brand new education commissioner is in the house, and you know I love to talk to education commissioners because they're integral to the quality of life here, and Ken Wagner is just kind of getting to know us, and we're going to invite him in momentarily here to actually comment on some of the things that we've got in our rundown tonight and talk about, you know, a new 5-year initiative that the State Board of Education is embarking on, I think tomorrow, and all sorts of things involved in our money, spending, charters, public, unions, teachers, administrators, all that kind of stuff. You know, testing, the big freak show, and what it's like to fill in for Deb Gist, who was a lightning rod, no doubt. All righty, let us go. Welcome to My State of Mind. It is great to have you aboard. I'm kind of nervous tonight because the Mets are game 1. You know, I'm a closet Mets guy. All right, it's out. I feel better. Yankee fans aren't going to be happy with me. Let's go to the rundown and kind of talk about what's going on. Yeah, so don't tell anybody. This is between you and me, as it always is, right? We record the show later in the afternoon, and you see it at 7:30 and 11:30 on MyRI TV and on Fox Providence at midnight. At 4:30 press time, almost about the time that we began the show, the hearings restarted on 38 studios. Headline here, Karen McBeth, the chairperson, she's got unanswered questions, and actually hints in this journal story of a couple days ago by Kathy Gregg that she might like to see an independent investigation to buoy what they're doing on the House side, which is good because what they're doing on the House side so far, at least the plan, is completely underwhelming, as is the governor's approach to this. She was on Newsmakers this past weekend and was asked, remember, by the way, that during the campaign she promised an independent investigation in order to get elected, but that's not her approach now.
There's 2 things that I have to have happen here. Number 1, figure out was there any wrongdoing, hold people accountable. Number 2, get our money back, get taxpayers' money back. I'm working hard to get the money back with the lawsuit. We've already reclaimed millions of dollars, and I'm optimistic we'll be able to get more. I think the combination of state police investigation and the oversight hearings is, the combination is enough to uncover wrongdoing.
That's a flip-flop.
It could be. But look, I'm the governor, I have to do what's right. An independent, when we did the RISDIC investigation, it was $6 million of taxpayer money. I am not, at this point, going to spend any more taxpayer money to do yet another investigation when I have a huge civil litigation that I'm managing, a state police investigation, and oversight hearings with subpoena power. I think the combination of those 3 things will get to the bottom of it and get our money back. If, at the end of that, I feel there's a need for yet another investigation, I'll do it.
Not what she promised, not what the vision was during the campaign, and not the kind of thing that will be dramatic enough. And I'm not talking about drama for commentary and ratings sake and coverage on newscasts. I'm talking about the drama that the people of this state need to elevate this conversation to its righteous, purposeful place, to resolve it, and to be able to put it away. And this bifurcated thing that's going on out there ain't going to get it done. You know, the House is really marching to the tune of the Speaker, who's having a pretty bad last few weeks as far as I'm concerned when it comes to leadership. He's appointed Karen McBeth, an earnest representative from Cumberland, to chair the Oversight Committee. I mean, she means well. She was on the radio with me today on WPRO.
We need to restore things through the House of Representatives to make sure this doesn't happen again. And that's through getting the answers of who knew what when, which has been the questions from the very beginning for this committee. And then once we do fill that in, where do we go from here?
Well, you know what? That's not a question that you should be asking. That's a question you should know. Because where we're going from here ought to be, let's get all 75 members of the General Assembly who voted yes on the loan guarantee program that enabled the EDC $75 million bond for Kurt Schilling's failed company to occur. Get them all under oath, get them under subpoena. What did you know? How did you know it? When did you know? So you can have some equity in terms of this quasi-investigation. Of course, the Speaker of the House, which should be the first guy to, under oath, answer some of these questions. And he holds all the cards and the signature on the subpoena. Don't get excited about these hearings. They could surprise us, but I doubt it. Speaking of the speaker, he had a little hissy fit yesterday, I guess. Kathy Gregg from the Providence Journal contacted the speaker. Here's the headline. Rude politics, he says, are behind the recusal talk. I don't know what's the matter with Nikki. I think he needs some kind of, vacation or something like that. He's all upset because a journal writes this story about his 23-year-old son who works for Cardi Company, not the furniture, but the contractors, and they could be a vendor for the roadworks program, the big tolling and bridge program that we're looking at. And so it was just asked whether or not there could be a conflict of interest down the line as he's orchestrating the funding for this, and that company could benefit. And it's easily suggested that that conflict doesn't really exist, and that thanks for asking. Instead, he goes nuts. Look at this. He starts making all these speeches about politics and petty politics and blah, 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 blah. You can read this. And then at the end, he says this is the exact reason why he won't consider an ethics bill. I mean, that kind of bully tactic on the part of the House Speaker is exactly what we don't need right now. Elevate yourself to 36,000 feet, Mr. Speaker, and think about the quality of life of the people of Rhode Island who need a better ethics bill and who want to believe that you're clean as a whistle. Doth protest too much, Mr. Speaker. And finally, we do a shortened rundown here this evening. The students and the police are now the new conversation, at least for us, because we've had a local incident, and now we see this thing in South Carolina. This headline is disturbing, and the video is even worse.
Flipped over and pulled from her desk, a student's arrest in South Carolina has caught a lot of attention as this video makes the rounds on social media. The Richland School District 2 Black Parents Association wants to know why the arrest was so violent.
Just thinking about what could have led up to that and what she could have done that would have warranted that kind of response.
It certainly alarms you and makes you a little bit afraid of what is actually happening within our schools.
A spokesman for the Richland County Sheriff says he was very disturbed by the video. The officer's actions are now under investigation.
The FBI is getting involved in this reportedly. I'm yet to understand what the connection is with the FBI, but my goodness, sometimes these viral videos are a real distraction, and they exacerbate things that really aren't that big or problematic. Sometimes they're a real good learning tool, and I bet you a bunch of resource officers throughout the country are having conversations about what not to do in a school setting. And of course, we had our own situation last week with Tolman that disturbed everybody when they had a resource officer tangle with a young man in Pawtucket, and there was a big conversation here. And so we've had our own double version nationally and locally on what it's like to deal with students and police. And so I thought right off of that we would ask our brand new education commissioner what he thought about that, because he's got a long history of excellence and understands the psychology of education. Welcome to Rhode Island.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Before we get into all the Rhode Island stuff, you have a sidebar thought about resource officers and students and that thing, this conflict?
Yeah, I mean, schools are special places, and they thrive and they move around relationships, and we always need to be thinking about how we're forming relationships, not just with the students who go along with the plan, but all of our students. And those relationships really go a long way when things start to get hot. We need to always be focused on de-escalating situations as opposed to escalating situations to keep everybody safe.
The state doesn't have a specific prescription or policy or postulate for the relationship between resource officers and students, correct? It's a local thing?
Yeah, so the decision on how to manage their school safety plan, including the decision about whether to bring in a school resource officer, is a local decision.
Do you think it's your role? Listen, I don't like to hyperbolize a couple of incidents and all of a sudden throw it on bureaucrats, administrators, elected officials, and the like, and make them respond to something that might be more media hype than not. I'm guessing the preponderance of resource officers in the country and here in Rhode Island are doing a really nice job and have a good rap with the kids. Having said that, when things like this happen, do you see it as your role to kind of weigh in as a conscience or a consultant or a director of what are you thinking when you see this stuff?
So I think our role is to continue to make sure that schools are meeting their responsibilities around the safety plan, which includes having plans to de-escalate conflicts when they occur, and includes the kinds of partners to bring in, including school resource officers. We're there to support, and we're there to step up and help when we can, but these are primarily local matters.
Do you believe in the idea that we have police officers in most of our high schools and junior highs?
I think that it's not whether they're a police officer or not a police officer, it's whether the person in that role is forming relationships with students and with the teachers and with the entire school community. So when something happens, they're in a place to help de-escalate the situation, quickly get it back to where it needs to be, as opposed to escalating the situation.
What's your vibe about kids today? Are they more of a challenge in the classroom than they have been in the past?
Kids today are just like kids have always been. They're great, they're full of opportunity, and we just need to help them thrive.
But they do seem to have a whole bunch of other stimuli. As a parent of no longer a teenager, but I've watched the last 10 years, and a lot of toys, a lot of electronics, a lot of horizontal attention, not a lot of vertical thinking, so they got a whole different world they're living in than you and I lived in, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's always been things to, capture our attention and kind of distract us from the things that we should be focused on. Kids can push through that. They just have a different set of perspectives and skills and opportunities than we had, and we need to, in my opinion, not focus on how everything has gone to pot, but just focus on how we can get people on track and help them fulfill their potential. And these are just the opportunities in front of us, and the adults just need to take it as it is and figure it out.
And what, chill a little bit?
Chill a little bit.
All right, when we come back, we'll chill a little bit about on the issues of Rhode Island. Chill a little bit. Where do you put it?
As we move to the more difficult things around whether it's higher expectations around academics and our standards-based grading system, and pushing kids to challenge themselves with more rigorous college-level courses. Those are the harder things, and but we had a lot of wins there in changing our school culture, making it safe, making it a positive place to be, and very honestly, kids want that structure.
That's Alan Tenrero, who is the Cumberland High School principal and won the National Principal of the Year award. It's good to celebrate some things in Rhode Island education, and he and Milken Award winner were here last week. They talked about standards. They talked about expectations, and they think the kids want more than perhaps we give them credit for. You think that's true?
Absolutely. I think that kids will absolutely surprise us when we challenge them with high expectations that we're going to prepare them for their future, but do it in a way that really captures their enthusiasm and their excitement and really support them. We don't know what kids are capable of until we challenge them and support them.
Why'd you come here?
I think all the stars are aligned. I think that the governor, working with the legislature, have committed to not only supporting education, but supporting education side by side with workforce development, economic commerce development. So the opportunity to work in a state like Rhode Island with all the players all saying the same thing, that we need to invest in our schools for the sake of not only our kids, our communities, but also our state and our economy, is just incredibly exciting.
Well, the investment in the schools is always a big to-do. I guess reportedly we're 7th in the country in terms of our costs per pupil spent, in the middle of the pack, 29th, 30th in terms of our return on investment and our performance. So people here are not necessarily happy with the performance of the public school systems. Perspective?
We always need to move forward.
Soundbite answer or a deeper thought?
No, it's not. It's neither a soundbite. It's just the reality. You can always improve. So my job is to find out what people are thrilled about, find out what people are concerned about, and not get kind of caught in judgment, but just how are we going to move from point A to point B. It starts with high expectations, but we need to invest in the way we're doing schooling, invest in the way that we're preparing and supporting teachers. And as you saw in the clip from Alan, it's supporting our principals. Principals are leaders of the school buildings. The school is where the action happens, and really making sure that we have transformative leaders in our principals.
Well, it would seem to me that kind of project management, principals making managerial decisions, has been kind of a missing link in our education environment. a lot of top-down, not a lot of discretion. It's a frustration in what that might be, the lack of a better term, mezzanine level of education management, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I believe you set expectations, you hold people accountable, you empower them, and then you get out of their way. And I think that if we have talent, we only have 300 principals in this state. There's no reason why each of those 300 principals can't be completely at the top of their game. They, working with their teachers in leadership roles, will transform our schools.
Are they entrepreneurial? Do you want them to be more entrepreneurial in the way they approach things? Because one of the chronic complaints from the education community, period, is we're too cookie cutter, too structured, too test oriented, too Common Core. By the way, Mr. Tenrero and Ms. Borden support Common Core, they told me last week, but there's this feeling of, oh, we all got to do it the same way, we have the same kind of, push across the line the same way type of thing, and I hear frustration from them.
Yeah. So there should be nothing cookie cutter about what we do, because we're preparing students for a world that certainly isn't cookie cutter. Kids need to go out into the world in a way that they can think creatively, solve problems, analyze information, form an opinion, ask questions, persist through difficulty, all of those kinds of things. There's absolutely nothing cookie cutter about it. But we do have to have learning expectations that are designed to prepare students for the world that's ahead of them. I think there's no contradiction there.
So have you been running around? I know you've been accessible and you've been listening and following up on your first comment there about improving. What have you learned from what people are telling you about what needs to be improved here?
I think that there's two things that really resonate with people. When we talk about empowering learning communities, really giving people autonomy to make decisions about how to move forward with the work while holding people accountable for expectations, I think that resonates with people, because we talk not just about principals, but also about supporting teachers and having teachers and principals work hand in hand with families and school communities. That resonates with people. The other thing we've been talking about is how can we make learning come alive for students, not in a cookie cutter kind of way. Yes, the expectations to prepare kids for the future are tough, but we need to support them in a way that makes it exciting for kids. So this idea of personalizing education and really rethinking how we do high school. Can we reimagine what our high schools should look like as the capstone experience of our K-12 system is really something that people are interested in.
Well, clearly you got to see some notes from some guys like Tenrero who seem to be doing well. The other thing that's captivating the dialogue and the debate right now is the charter school conversation, right? So we've got public schools and we have public charter schools, and the public school advocates, the traditional public school advocates, tend to forget the word public is attached to the charter schools when they're pointing fingers at the charter schools. They say that the charter schools are robbing too much money from their resources and that it's an uneven playing field for evaluation. You know all the arguments. This is not new. You've got a follow the student education formula that is being reviewed. The governor just signed an executive order saying we got to take a good look at this. Obviously, you'll have an instrumental role in that conversation. What's the truth? Are you a supporter of charter schools, growing charter schools? Can they live together? Can they learn from each other? Can they be compatible ever? Because right now, they're not in this state.
Yeah, I see no reason why charter schools and traditional district schools can't be compatible, be part of the same ecosystem that offers meaningful options to families and to students.
Well, you're going to have to bang some heads together, it seems to me, because that's not the environment right now. I mean, there's a real friction, a real political battle going on the ground in this particular space.
Yeah, but there's also real instances where charter schools and traditional district schools are rolling up their sleeves and working together hand in hand. For example, there's a lot of interest in work around dual language. So we have a dual language charter school that's working hand in hand with two of our school districts, I believe in Pawtucket and in the Kingston area, just figuring out how they can share their strengths and figure out how to do better things for their kids. In a lot of ways, all schools want the kind of autonomy that charter schools currently have. So rather than talk about whether or not we should have charter schools, I'd rather shift the conversation. How can we make all of our schools feel like they have the kind of meaningful autonomy to serve their kids best, and have that shift the conversation a
It seems
bit.
to me that that's, I love your answers. It seems to me that teachers, in a lot of ways, are cramped by their own unions with agreements and institutional contracts that may actually work against the kind of creative talent that individual public school teachers can bring to the table. Thought on that?
Yeah, I don't think it's as simple as that.
Nothing is simple in this field, right?
I don't think it's a conversation of union or not union, charter or not charter. It's usually more complicated than that. And the vision that I have is completely compatible with being partners with the teachers' unions. However, when people look at a particular contract and they say, well, that particular thing, that work rule just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Often if you look back at the legacy of how that came into be, it's often because management was doing something that just really didn't make a whole lot of sense. So people got all worked up on it and they put it into the contract. And now it lives in the contract, but it may have been something that happened, maybe a stupid something that happened 10 or 15 years ago, but it's still in the contract. So the question that I want to ask is, can we allow ourselves to take some risks, to try to think differently about how we're doing it, and on all sides of the equations, what's best for the kids and really what's best for teaching and learning. The vision that we have is not only to help bring education alive for students, but bring joy into the classroom. I really believe if you're enjoying your work, you're probably doing your best work, and if you're not enjoying your work, you're probably not doing your best work.
All right, good stuff. A couple more minutes with the new Ed Commissioner waking back.
If someone doesn't push them to expand their mind, expand their thoughts, try their best, they're never going to succeed. I'm trying to break them out of their comfort zone. And I make them read all the time. And they hate it, but they love me for it.
I enjoyed Kendra Borden last week. She's the Milken Award winner, junior high school in Pawtucket. I think the culture of her classroom needs to be duplicated across the culture of education in the state, period. Some things have got to change and expectations have got to get a little bit higher. It seems like everyone's going to have to leave their political baggage, you know, aside to be able to get this thing done. You agree?
I agree. I think ideology needs to be checked at the door. We just need to look at what's working, what's not working, and
are we a little too, you and I, a little too Pollyanna in agreeing with that? You know, when you come back, hopefully often, every few months if you'd like, or 6 months, a year, blah, 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 it'll be interesting to see what you're thinking about this place. I don't want to put a damper on it. I came here 16 years ago and said, it couldn't be that bad. No, it's not that bad, but it has a unique culture, very different from other places, and the infighting that's gone on in education is pretty tough. You know, Deb Gist came in as a change agent that everybody was behind. She left kind of being chased out the door. Have you followed the politics of that at all?
I mean, I've been following the politics in New York, in Rhode Island, and across the country. It's been a tough past 5 years.
Why?
Because I think that there have been ideas about how to improve schools. Some of those ideas have resonated with people, some of those ideas have not, and then when you get to implementation, you know, the idea really hits some stumbling blocks, and you have to figure out what's working and what's not.
You got a board meeting coming up tomorrow. I only have a few seconds here. What are your expectations? 5-year plan?
Yeah, so it's very exciting. Our state board is going to consider and hopefully approve our 5-year strategic plan, which was done in a very public way. I think 14,000 Rhode Islanders have weighed in on that plan over the past year. And we're looking forward to get that final approval and move forward with the work.
If in 10 seconds you could tell me what it means, what does the plan mean? What is it?
So I think the plan is what we talked about before, how to bring education alive for kids while preparing them for their futures and bring parents and teachers and principals and families to the table.
All right, we'll have to take a look. Welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you.
I hope we have a good working relationship. We wish you the best of luck for our kids. The new Ed Commissioner. Final word next. You know, Ben Carson is leading the Republican field right now, and reportedly, according to the pundits, he's leading because of his demeanor. Well, this Ed Commissioner, Dr. Ken Wagner, seems to have that same kind of soft but direct demeanor. I think we all wish him well, right? Because we need to do well. We'll see you on the radio tomorrow at noon on WPRO, and back here tomorrow night.